What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are here at Brevard College Disc Golf Course and we are back with the traces. And while I think that the trace is fabulous, I think that for the straighter PD slot, I don't know if I necessarily want a full 11 speed. I might be leaning on the trace and coming back to the trace as more of a distance driver, but as far as the PD is concerned, especially this PD, this is just what I was reaching for on fairway shots, driver shots. Basically, this was my go-to just control shot, and I think the 9 to 10 speed fits that a little bit better than the 11 speed, at least for me personally. So we are going to be testing out against this absolutely gorgeous trace. We are pairing up, not the PD, but we are pairing up a disc that you haven't seen yet, and this is the Halo Valkyrie. This one is really stand out pretty gorgeous. This one's max weight. This trace is 174. You definitely saw a lot of this Valkyrie, and I love this one, but this one is 158. Doesn't really stand as comparison. We're gonna throw all 4 of these off the tee shot here, but for this, it is gonna be more of a control battle, so we're only going to see the trace for a couple of shots. We really are pairing up the PD versus the Valkyrie. So we're gonna start off on hole number 1. Let's throw a couple of forehands, see how these discs stack up. I'm gonna start with the lightweight Valkyrie though, just a little bit of a wind read. Okay, got a little bit of a head tailwind or a head crosswind. Let's see. I'll also go with the trace. See, that's parked, but that's also a distance driver shot. Now we're gonna go with the PD. Oh, then that turned over. All right, and now the Valkyrie. You know, and since the trace was the one that was in the bag for the first month, hopefully you're a little more balanced there. Since the trace was the one, we are still gonna throw the trace. And I know this is a fairway video, since we have, well, I mean, Innova now calls the Valkyrie a distance driver. But since this is kind of that in-between zone, I think I'm gonna give us one fairway video a month that we're allowed to do a kind of a 9, 10, 11 speed. And so as far as points are concerned, 1 point, 2 points, 3 points. Let's see, just big distance rips. And we are gonna do it not based off of distance down the fairway, because as long as they pass the wooden post, we're fine. As long as they pass the wooden post, the distance from this dark green to dead grass line is where we're gonna do it. Trace has the box. Let's see if we can place them on the right spot down here. All right, I mean, that's definitely beatable. Now, for the Valkyrie. About the same spot. Now for the PD. It's about the same distance, just the other direction. So what does that tell me? That the PD is more overstable or has less of a tendency to flip up. which for C-Line PD versus the Proton Trace makes sense because it has a -1.2 instead of a 0.3. And for the Valkyrie, it makes sense because, well, it's a Valkyrie, but somehow the Valkyrie has almost the same stability as the Trace, and it's not going quite as far, which I think is actually what I want for this specific slot. Not that the Trace is a bad disc, it's a great disc, but I think for this specific slot, I think I need something just a little bit shorter. The Valkyrie actually won out on the last toe. It was just a little bit, just a touch better than the Trace. The PD, surprisingly, a little bit further away just because, well, unsurprisingly, the dead grass just made it skip a little bit further than the green grass that caught these discs. So unfortunately, PD still below. The Trace and Valkyrie are tied up at 5. PD still with 2. Surprisingly, this is hole number 7's drive, about 370. And we had a bit of a tailwind on the last hole. This is going to be more into the headwind, so this will definitely be more placement style shots, trying to control the angles into the headwind and trying not to turn them over, while also trying to get enough distance to make it to the basket. I thought that would flip up way more. Okay, interesting. Let's go Trace. See, I don't want it to do that. That's great, but that's more the flight of a stable trail, not a flippy PD. I need to dry this one off. It is a little muddy from the splash it took. Okay, unsurprisingly, PD is going to take the point driving directly into the headwind. Valkyrie is going to be back, but I liked the flight of the Valkyrie better. I just liked the release worse. I keep expecting the Trace. Well, yeah. I might. So we are going to revisit the Trace, but I think I'm going to revisit the Trace in more, like I said, more of the trail slot, because it goes amazingly far and it's so much fun to throw. But if I beam it into a headwind, it's going to turn. Whereas the Valkyrie didn't even get to flat, and the PD got to flat and then faded. So there is that. The PD took the win on the last hole, but it's still at the last place, 5, 6, and 7 points respectively. PD is going to be thrown first. This is hole number 8's drive. We have 2 more holes to play, and they're all very knotted up, very tight. So anything could happen. Hole number 8's about a 350-foot backhand hyzer. Go up there, swing left. PD is my preferred shot on this hole, but this Halo Valkyrie has been very stable for a Valkyrie, which means it might be the perfect stability for this slot. Oh, I think I hit the bridge. All right, now for the Trace. And that's deep of the bend, which leaves you a better putt than being short of the bend, but I'd rather be right on it. Okay, that might be parked. We have moved out to 11. While the Trace technically was a better result than the PD, the PD hit the bridge, the one man-made obstacle on the course. Otherwise, it would have been much, much closer than the Trace. So I'm gonna give the Trace the 1 point here. The Valkyrie definitely took the win on that, which means that Valkyrie and Trace are both tied up, and the PD is 2 points behind, which means the PD doesn't really have a chance to win, but it does have a chance to tie up with the second best contender. We're gonna go Valkyrie, Trace, PD, and then we're gonna close it off with the Valkyrie that kind of started this whole idea about what needs to be in my bag. On this hole, we are looking for a little bit of anhyzer, either out of the hand or the disc gives it to us. And so with this Valkyrie, probably going to be very flat on the release, maybe even anhyzer, because this isn't doing much in the way of flipping. I mean, but that's the perfect shot. That's what I want out of this disc. Flip up almost to flat and then just hold that hyzer angle all the way. It's great. Very similar shot shape to this PD. Oh, well, you can see where it was going, and then a tree. And now the Trace. The issue that I'm having with the Trace, I think, is the base concept of the mold design is that it's not designed to be that overstable. It's overstable if you throw it softer, but if you can get it up to kind of an 11 speed, as far as speed or spin, Proton plastic is very precise on its flight numbers, so you definitely see the -1.2, whereas if this was a 0.2, it probably would have a very close representation of what we're seeing. But as this is a -1.2, we do actually see a lot more flip than I want out of this slot. Well, the Valkyrie took the cake yet again. Valkyrie wins out. We're gonna give the PD the 2 points because it was closer to the actual gap, and the Trace with the 1 point. So PD and Trace finally end up tying up at the very end of the video. And since those were the two that I paired up in the first place, that makes a lot of sense. But I think the Valkyrie I'm gonna have a really, really good time with. And now I have two different weights. So I can get two different styles of flight. Hopefully you enjoy content like this. If so, please make sure to like the video. If you want to see new stuff, make sure to comment all of that down below. Please make sure to subscribe. It helps you guys out with these subscriber only giveaways. Definitely helps me out as well. I'm going to be trying to make sure we get out one, at least small giveaway every month. So make sure you're subscribing. Make sure you're telling your friends and families. And until next time, see you out on the course.
Hook up. Or just go forever. And get through every